Okay, everyone, welcome to our live stream. I am joined by esteemed colleague, Dr. Beth King. So incredibly grateful that we get to have this conversation. And before we even jump into this, as you can probably see, there's like three versions of me in the background, and you know, Beth was just so gracious and understanding to be like, hey, we are psychologists by profession. We are not like technical like people. And I was trying to figure out what happened and how to fix it. Then I was like, you know what? We will roll with it. And yeah. And so, Beth, I'm just so incredibly grateful for you. I'm grateful that we get to have this conversation because I know that so many of us as clinicians are thinking about, uh, I think, our work, but also like legacy, and also I think at a practical level, how do we diversify beyond just like straight clinical work or even the trading time for income model. I think that's the norm for many of us and that we're taught. And so yeah, excited for our conversation, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be doing this too.
um, I was trying to think about all sorts of places to start. I thought the first place we could really start is, well, tell us a little bit about you. Like you've been in the profession for a while. You are a seasoned vet, um, and tell us about where your private practice is and what you're doing and all of that kind of stuff, and we'll jump in.
Sure. Um, I have been in practice for about 30 years as a psychologist, and I actually had a master's in counseling psych and was working as a master's level therapist for a few years before that. When people post like looking for seasoned therapist, I tend to, for better or worse, write back, yes, I'm well seasoned. Um, I work with both children and adults, and I own a group practice that's physically based in New York City, but we see people remotely all through New York State called Treat NYC.
Mm,
Um, I, for the last 4 years, actually live in Tucson, Arizona.
mm,
Um, One of the better gifts of COVID was that I had already decided pre-COVID that I wanted to move to Tucson
mm.
after many, many years. I raised my kids in the city and practice there and everything. So I now we all see all our patients remotely. And I'm both a neuropsychologist and a regular psychologist,
Mm,
seeing kids and adults. And one of my own daughters has dysgraphia. And
mm,
so I kind of fell into that as a specialty, as one is prone to doing, and also working with other kinds of families of people with chronic illnesses, learning disabilities, stuff like that. And I moderate a Facebook group that has almost 12,000 members called Thriving with Dysgraphia.
mm,
And that's pretty much all organic growth. I think literally the first 2 weeks I did $50 of paid advertising.
mm.
And since then it's all been organic. And I think there are a number of Facebook dysgraphia groups, but I think mine's the only one that's professionally moderated. And I really saw a huge need. I mean, obviously, almost 12,000 members is
Yes.
a huge need.
Yeah.
And I kind of went with it.
Mm.
Um,
What made you go with
and
it
yeah,
though? I mean, because that's not like, I don't know, moderating Facebook groups, starting Facebook groups, like none of that's like exactly like instruction manual on that in grad school. So,
definitely not. Um, funny you mentioned grad school. In grad school, I had a supervisor who said, doing therapy is piecework. At
mm,
core, you're a very well educated factory worker.
mm,
And you sew a bunch of dresses, you get paid per dress. You see a bunch of patients, you get paid per patient. And
mm,
at the time, I was a little offended
Hmm.
and huffy, like, no, it's not like that from my extensive experience as a grad student. And I love my work and I love seeing patients, and I do not want to give up the clinical part of my life.
Hmm.
Right now, my life is a mixture of administration and supervision and seeing patients. But like so many psychologists, I really started wanting to break the time money intricate connection.
Hmm.
It partially for altruistic reasons,
Hmm.
12,000 people, and obviously they're a drop in the bucket, are desperate to know how to help their kids with dysgraphia.
Hmm.
And I was kind of saying the same things over and over in my group, and I don't grudge that. They need to, people helped me when I had a dysgraphic daughter, and I want to pass that on to other parents who are trying to figure it out. But also being tied to piecework,
Hmm.
especially as I get older, grayer.
Hmm.
I want, it's about a legacy. I think you used that word. You know, Eric Erickson talks about generativity and passing on your wisdom, and that's important to me. And it's also about getting paid without having to sit there through every session, because that's nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And I,
as a worker,
right.
it's nice to not have that, intricate tie
Yeah. And I
the
actually
time
think for
money link.
right. Yeah, yeah. No, and I think actually in a lot of situations using those in tandem is really powerful, right?
Mhm.
And it creates leverage and all of those things. And yeah, I'm so glad that you outlined that. I wanted to ask you a question, which is, it's not exactly like the norm for a private practice therapist to like think about creating an online course. I feel like it's starting to become kind of a norm, but
Mhm.
what made you start thinking about it? Especially because, you're 30 years into the profession. Like it's not, yeah.
Yeah, what made me start thinking about it? Um, Honestly,
Mm,
partially different practitioners started advertising training courses and such.
mm,
And, I read the emails I get, not all of them, but many of them,
mm,
from respected providers.
mm,
And I thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea.
mm,
And I initially took a really wonderful course, but a much briefer course on course creation. And it got me really committed to from someone else, not
mm,
with you. And it got me really committed to the idea of it. Um, but I was floundering a bit. They definitely don't teach you about course creation in grad school. I actually come out of an education background,
mm,
and I've done a lot of course development, like live workshops and things in previous jobs, and I
mm,
love doing it. It's a really creative thing. And so in many ways this was a very natural flow.
mm,
Um, mm, just I have the background and the experience for doing it. I've developed in previous jobs before I was a full-time private practitioner. I developed so many workshops,
mm,
and it's not so different a workshop from a course. It's different, but it's not a huge leap. So, and then honestly, your course came along and I knew and trusted you, and it was longer.
mm,
And I thought that it would do a really good job of filling in the gaps, because I know people who took shorter, less detailed, less supportive courses and ran with it. But After several years, it was quite clear that that was not me,
Mm.
at least not at this stage in my life. I wanted more accountability, more advice, more support. And I
Yeah.
signed up for your mastermind, of course.
Well, we're so grateful you're part of it. I think, I mean, you brought up a good point, which is, I think when in my own journey, I mean, as a course creator, this will be year 10 next year. I think one thing I've realized is you can build it fast or you can build it slow and intentional because I think most people, one, it's like already a lot to create an online course, right? And just to be able to build it more like a marathon versus a sprint, I think there's just, I think one, energetically, it's just a lot better. Two, I feel like a lot of us as clinicians were like deep processors, so it takes a little bit of time to take an idea, flesh it out, refine it,
Mhm.
tweak it, and then how do you do that when you constrict it to like a couple of weeks, you know? Um, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm so, that was, I think the format, I think that's why we went to that 1 year because it was like, okay, you know, like this seems more feasible and doable. Um,
Mhm.
you said, you know, we started talking about this. By the way, if you're joining us live, hello. Please feel free to drop comments, leave. Definitely, like I will, you know, I can see them as they're coming up, and we want to. We honestly just wanted this to be super conversational, super helpful. If you have questions for Beth, if you have questions for me, please feel free to drop it. Even as insights, as you pick up things, feel free to drop that as well. And we can definitely like weed that in. But I wanted to ask you, you know, you have been a psychologist for 30 plus years. I see
Mhm.
a lot of colleagues that are entering the field thinking about creating an online course. But what was it for you as an established mental health professional to say, like, I want to create a course, right? Especially because I feel this tension. I think you do too, which is I feel like one, the higher the degree you have, and then also the more license, like years license you are, you sort of stick in a box, right? And you are more scared to go outside of that box.
Well, for me, and of course this varies with someone's personality, yes, I was scared to go outside that box. I still am. My course is not yet live.
Mm,
Um, but also, I'm, it's exciting.
mm,
It's exciting to learn new things. It's exciting to stretch myself in new ways. As I keep saying, I love my clinical work. I love, but then it was time to expand. And that's when I turned my solo practice into a group practice because those were new experiences, new ways of stretching myself. And now I'm moving on to the next step in doing course creation. Yeah, I'm nervous. And you do a really good job of supporting people in their anxiety.
mm,
But I also, it's exciting.
mm.
It's fun to think in different ways and not same old, learning new things. I'm a lifelong learner, and it's sort of like, okay, I could be studying a foreign language or,
Mhm.
art history in greater depth. And frankly, I've done those things and probably will go back to them, but I'm learning about course creation and it kind of integrates um, my excitement at learning new things and stretching and growing with my very deeply held commitment to do good, to give back to my community, to pay it forward.
Mm,
And I have had so many people help me figure out things about child rearing and
mm,
making a calm, happy family life through the years. And if I can offer that to parents of kids with special needs, in this case, dysgraphia, I want to do that.
Yeah. Thank you for saying all of that, because I think when we were creating it, this was the vision. Like, it wasn't just like a program to create a course. Like, we wanted, I, and maybe you can even speak to this, like, we wanted a certain type of therapist in there, right? The one that was sort of mission driven, that it wasn't just about creating it just for the revenue, although that's an important part, but it is about things like legacy and impact. And what's been your sort of pulse of like the folks? Like, we meet every single week, so we've all gotten to know each other really well. We do, we twice a month we do live teachings, and so there's a lot of breakout rooms and stuff like that. So I was wondering if you could just share that. Like, what has it been like being with other therapists that are sort of in that same mindset, that, sort of that both service mindset and like this abundance mindset?
I love it. I love it because they're very much like me in many ways,
Mm.
but everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a sort of a common ground of mission orientation, commitment. I would say one of the common threads through most, if not all of us, really, is that we've all had some kind of a clinical and or usually both life experience that we're now trying to help other people with, either other therapists or other people,
Yep. Yep.
clients, whatever. So we're bringing ourselves to it.
Mm.
Um, we have a lot in common in terms of our core identities, but we're enough different. It's really interesting. One of the things you do generally in breakout rooms is have us like refine some idea, some phrase, some whatever, and then run it by other people.
Mm.
First in the group and then more broadly
Mm.
with our board of experts.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because they're enough different from me. They make some different assumptions. And so, the way sometimes you come up with some idea and somebody goes, "Oh, I'm not sure that's a good idea. What about whatever?"
Mm.
Or, "Wow, I love," and you're like, "Dang, I never thought of that."
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is that you get a lot of enthusiasm and support, and you really need both.
Yeah.
People that are just yes men don't help you in course creation
Mm-hmm.
on the one hand, but at the same time, boy, you want to be sure that your cohort is there for you. And
Mm.
you've done a really nice job of creating a supportive environment where I'm never really afraid that somebody's gonna call me out about something in a mean way.
Yeah.
That just never happens.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think, obviously, I think when we're trying to create these groups, we do one-on-one calls with everybody that is interested in joining. And there's definitely been in the past where I've, said, "Hey, I'm so grateful you're interested. I do think like all of this makes sense, but like for whatever reason, I just don't think it's a good fit." And
Mhm.
usually I'll tell them what it is. But again, it's out of that desire to create a larger cohesion in the group.
Mhm.
Um, and and I think you alluded to this, which is when we do a lot of interaction with each other, and the benefit of building a course in this structure versus just kind of doing it on your own is you're getting different perspectives, like you said,
Mhm.
right? And so ultimately, those perspectives either give you new ideas or they help you tweak or refine or polish existing ones so that you're
Mhm.
getting the best product out there. But I think the other benefit is seeing each other. We're all creating these courses, and now you've got like colleagues that are like, "Oh my gosh, like I remember when I helped with that course, and now Beth's course is out there." And
Mhm.
it's, I don't know, it's a very gratifying on many levels. I think so. Uh, you said a couple of personal kind of things, and I wanted to dive a little bit into that. So you said, daughter had dysgraphia, has
Still
dysgraphia.
does. It doesn't go
Yeah.
away. It's lifelong.
Yeah, uh, and then you said you that ultimately prompted you to into private practice to focus on dysgraphia, right?
Mhm.
Can you, and then you said this Facebook group that you created over the past couple of years is now 12,000 members strong, right?
Almost,
Which,
yeah.
yeah, which I mean, you should be so incredibly proud of. That's amazing. Uh, I was wondering if you could, if there's any like kind of threads or through lines through your personal experience, what you were seeing in the therapy room in this Facebook group that you were like, hey, I think I can deliver this information in a course versus like a workshop or some other
Hmm.
modality.
Hmm.
What were you seeing?
Well, I think that the thing about coping with any kind of a kid with what I irreverently refer to as stuff,
Mm,
what the stuff is varies. It
mm,
could be significant learning disabilities, it could be medical problems, stuff. I have a general interest in working with families and people and kids with stuff. And that's been true throughout my career. Um, in the case of dysgraphia, there's a lot of just plain information that people need. And a course is a very good, efficient way to convey that. And it's especially important because, quite frankly, there's a whole ton of misinformation out there about dysgraphia. And I think I have a lot of credibility because of my training, because of my life experience, because of my many years of experience. Like I half facetiously said, I'm a very well seasoned clinician. Um, and I hate hearing people spout misinformation. I'm not upset with them. They don't know. I feel like they've been misled with
mm,
the sometimes manipulatively, most often with the best of intentions. And so dysgraphia as a topic is well suited to a course because it's a very efficient way to convey information.
mm,
But in my course, I'm also working to help people to deal with the feelings and their reactions to having a kid with dysgraphia, and in many cases they may have dysgraphia themselves, and it's been a struggle.
mm,
And so to offer support, the whole emotional piece of it, it's not like, oh, go read a book. And how to help people struggle with it and accept that their kid has dysgraphia and accept that dysgraphia is a lifelong diagnosis.
mm,
My dysgraphic daughter, both my daughters are adults now and well established in their adult lives and their careers. And my dysgraphic daughter, like my other daughter, both are doing very well.
mm,
But, and I think that's so important to have people know, when your kid first has dysgraphia and it's not working out well with school, and maybe it's affecting their grades and their learning, and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
mm,
It's, it can be very discouraging and
mm,
worrisome as a parent. And so I think it's really helpful that I have an adult, successful daughter with dysgraphia. And there's a whole kind of process of mourning and acceptance that has to go into having a kid with stuff,
yeah.
in this case, dysgraphia, because it doesn't go away.
Mm,
And So you need to reach a point, you know, in DBT, they talk about radical acceptance, the need to just accept that something is as it is, and it might not be what you'd most hoped for, but it is.
Mm.
And you can make a very, you know, in the case of being a parent of a dysgraphic child, you can make a wonderful life with and empower your kid to make a wonderful life for themselves. But it starts with accepting that dysgraphia is a thing, and especially in the digital era, it's such an easy thing to accommodate and work around. And I feel really, honestly, really sad when I hear parents whose focus is on trying to cure dysgraphia, which doesn't really work out typically, instead of focusing on helping people to do well with dysgraphia. Coincidentally, my thought of the dysgraphic one called me last night, just, hi, Mom, calling to check in. Um, and we were chatting, and I told her that I was going to be doing this today, and she knows I'm working on developing this course. And she was like, why are people upset their kid can't write by hand? Nobody writes things by hand, they type everything. And I'm like, well, people are upset because, you know, feelings aren't always completely rational. I mean, I didn't, my daughter is wonderful, but no, she will not be becoming a psychologist, you know. But she's right. It was a real impediment to be dysgraphic 50 years ago. But now, with all the technology and the workarounds, I rarely write anything by hand. You know, almost everything I do, I type um, into a computer, into my phone, or I, you know, make a voice memo to myself. And that's really been very liberating for people with dysgraphia.
Uh, we spend a lot of our first weeks like validating the course, and part of that validation is like studying your life, right? And one of the things that we try to just really emphasize over and over again is create a course that is you of like 1 to 2 seasons ago or 1 to 3 seasons ago. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's for this reason because one, there's a personal connection to your story, right? And then the second thing is, especially I feel like as AI, becomes the norm, content creation and being able to share knowledge at an academic level, AI is going to be able to do that, right? But it's these nuances, the lived life experiences that is really going to separate like good courses from like phenomenal courses, right? And and just the fact that you've gone through these emotional ups and downs and even seen how accommodations are handled, all of that, like I think
Mm-hmm.
it gives you such grace and compassion as a course creator because it not only impacts, like, in our mastermind, right? We're creating a free webinar to advertise the course, right? So it allows you to speak at a real human level on that webinar. It also allows you to put in like nuanced lessons into the actual course to be like, hey, this is beyond just the academic understanding of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to shift a little bit, which is, I think there's this like thing in the online course creation space where it people make it look so easy to create an online course, right? And it almost like create an online course and you can start making like digital or online income overnight kind of thing, right? But for me, it's like really important that we give a more realistic perspective on all of this, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, from your perspective, like, what has it been like as a course creator? Like, kind of give us like the ups and the downs, and and what kind of keeps you going as you're creating this course.
You do in many ways.
Mm,
Um, you know, I think one of the things I appreciate about not being in your beta group, you've been doing this mastermind for a while,
mm-hmm,
is that you often say things like, hey, this week is a week when people often feel discouraged.
mm,
And that's really reassuring to me if I'm sitting there feeling discouraged. It's like, oh, my course isn't a bunch of junk,
mm,
it's just a stage.
yeah,
And I've really appreciated the process orientation that you have and have conveyed to us. And it's been a good model for me in how to remember to convey that to my students in this course also,
mm,
that you have to, there are ups and downs, and there are also, you've been very good at reframing things. So like one of the very first exercises you had us do, not the first, but a few weeks in maybe, was to research who else is working on our topic. And I thought, or would have thought, oh, too much competition, but everybody's been there, done that, bad plan, get a new topic.
mm,
And you really reframe that very nicely to like, yeah, that doesn't mean the market's saturated. You always have something. You have your own unique voice. Appreciate it. Help other people to recognize it and appreciate it themselves. But it means that this is a topic of interest and of concern to people.
mm,
And so that's such a use that was such excuse me, such a useful reframing,
mm,
and it was so reassuring to me. And my topic is a funny topic in that, on the one hand, the fact that I think I didn't check this morning, it's growing all the time, but I think I have 11.8 or 11.9K members,
mm,
just under 12,000,
mm,
is validation.
mm-hmm, yeah,
That this is a really a topic of wide concern to people. And most of my members are parents.
mm,
Some are professionals, teachers, OTs, people like that that work with dysgraphics. And some are adult dysgraphics who want to learn more about this thing they've been struggling with their whole lives. Um, so I think I have the validation that it's an important topic and a needed topic.
mm,
It's actually not a topic that's widely researched and
mm,
talked about, which is what scientists aren't very interested in dysgraphia.
mm,
Um, there is some research about it, but not tons. I'm always very excited when a new article comes out. So just things like that, like
mm,
the the roller coaster of, oh, it's a great topic. I already have all these people interested in it. Oh, but nobody's talking about it. Maybe
mm,
there's a reason for that. Oh, but that does mean that there's room for my voice.
yeah,
Those having support and the big picture point of view. You have a phrase which I don't remember right now about, you know, pulling back and looking at the big picture
mm,
is super helpful
yeah. The
to
40,000
me.
foot view.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
phrase.
yeah,
Because when you're working on creating a course, especially a course that you connect to emotionally, as
mm-hmm,
I do, and I think everybody in our course connects to their topics emotionally. You need that big picture sometimes because you're down in the mud,
yeah,
and it's just super helpful.
right. Yeah, no, 100%. What was the biggest fear that you had when you were launching your online course, or as you're launching your online course?
nobody cares. Nobody's going to sign up. I'm going to have done all this work.
Mm,
And in a way, if it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. I
mm,
mean, my financial stability does not depend on this course, but it would be, it would feel humiliating,
mm,
and it would be like, God, how could I be so off target thinking there
mm,
was this need,
mm-hmm.
which I really do feel convinced there is.
Yes. Yeah.
But, you know, I would be, I would, I would feel so disappointed and
Yeah.
kind of embarrassed if I've
Yeah.
put a year plus's work into this and then
Mhm.
it flops.
Yeah.
But I also kind of know that sometimes things need to be tweaked.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
one of the big advantages of being a little older with a little more life experience under my belt is that I know that not everything works out well the first
Mm.
time, and that's okay. And you tweak it and you figure it out
Yeah.
and you move on from there.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm a pretty resilient person,
No, you
by
absolutely
nature.
are.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, if I need to tweak, I'll tweak.
Mm.
But I do
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah. Which I think, thank you for normalizing that because I feel like every one of us, I don't know whether you want to call it like fear or imposter syndrome, whatever it is, right? Like, or just like a legit concern. I think all of us struggle with that and navigate that. Um, we've put in some safeguards, right? So I was wondering if you could speak to kind of two areas of these safeguards. So one is we talk a lot about creating a board, like a round table, right? And
Mhm.
so if you could one share about the round table, and then the second about the monthly mindset coaching that we do, and how that's sort of been helpful for you.
Sure. The round table was one of the hardest things for me.
Mm,
Um, it well, and I guess it relates to the round table coaching. It tapped into some of my anxiety about competition and,
mm,
how people would feel about this and that I was doing this. Competition between women can be uncomfortable.
mm,
Not for every woman, but it is for me
mm,
sometimes. And starting the round table, it's intended and serves as a form of support, a
mm,
source of support, and also feedback, loving but honest feedback. But it stirred up feelings for me. And the mindset coaching, I think I was one of the first people when we started that to go, yeah, I have, I need some help here. And it was super helpful to
mm,
me to kind of look a little bit more at my anxiety about that and to reframe my fears about it a little so
mm,
that I could really um, lean into doing what I needed to do
mm,
instead of just, when I was trying to do this on my own, I kind of knew the model of like a flow. Not that everybody has the same model, but the flow of a course and
mhm.
all that. But I wasn't working on it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working on it partially because, busy lives and what are your priorities, and partially because of anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's where the mindset coaching really comes to play. And all of us in the group have different places where
Yeah.
we feel blocked. Some people are very blocked about something that I'm like, okay, yeah,
Mm,
you're blocked, but no biggie for me. It's
mm,
not universal, but the fact that we all have blocks,
mm.
that is universal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
And so
think
it's nice to have something to do with those blocks.
yeah, right. Um, those of you guys that are tuning in live, thank you again for joining us. Feel free to leave a comment, whether you're on LinkedIn or Facebook. I can see the comments as they come through, and yeah, at least say hi and let us know where you're joining us from. And if you have questions for Beth about her course and some of the things that she's picking up, feel free to share that as well. Um, you were alluding, so in the mastermind we have a a colleague, and we have a monthly, we call it a mindset hour, and the whole intent of that hour is to work on all the internal stuff that comes up, right? Who am I to be launching my course? I'm not an expert. There's already a course out there. What do I price my course? What do you mean I should price it at this level? And hi, Nicole. And and so uh, it's it's incredibly helpful because, like, for us it's just not about creating an online course. It's about shaping you and changing you from the inside as well, in approaching this new season of life, right? Because you said it earlier and I forgot the exact phrase, like, this is a new season where you're on a new platform, right? And how do you sort of lean into that genius and take up space in the way that you are meant to, you know? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so thank you for just, sharing that, because I think it's like, yeah, it's just so normalizing. Um, Beth, specifically for you, like, what made you sign up for uh, our mastermind? I.e., like, why was it the best option? Because the reality is there's a ton of programs out there that can help you create an online course.
I really liked that you have had your own journey.
Mm,
Um, and I liked that you're a psychologist and so am I. Um, there, a lot of the courses that are out there are very sort of businessy.
mm,
This is how you do it, and they're kind of more corporate oriented.
mm,
And that's fine if that's your world and that's your language. And I absolutely think that there are things to learn from a business mindset. I work on that a lot in
mm,
myself, to become more of a business person.
mm,
Um, but it really helps to be doing a course that where the fundamental underlying assumptions are similar and are relatable.
mm,
And so you you're a mental health provider just like I am. We happen to have the same degree, but that doesn't matter. But the assumptions, some of them are the same,
mm,
but you're further along in the journey than I am. And in the same way that you talk pretty openly about your own journey and your own anxieties and successes, and that's wonderful to hear your individual voice, just like you're teaching us to share our own journeys with our students. Um, I don't want to learn about course creation from somebody who deals with it as one of a series of kind of get rich quick schemes.
mm,
That I'm not interested in that approach. It doesn't fit with my values. I'm much more mission driven than
mm,
that. Yeah, maybe I could create a wonderful course on some topic or another, but if it's not a topic I believe in and care about, I'm
mm,
not going to do a very good job with it. And I'm happy, I want to be clear, I'm happy, like if somebody wants to teach me a course on photo editing,
mm,
which is something I've become interested in and need to learn about, great. I'll take a course and I'm going to want to take it from a photo editor
mm.
because that's what they do. It's not that everything has to be touchy feely at
Right.
all, but photo editing is a skill I have
Mm,
become interested in and feel would be helpful to me on this part of my journey, and I want to learn about it.
mm,
Um, So I want to take it from a photo editor. If
Yeah.
I want to learn about course creation within the mental health space, I want to take it from a mental health practitioner. And yes, you have competitors within this space, but that's fine. Everybody kind of finds who they click with.
Yeah. Yeah, which is like I think the most important thing, right? Like, yeah, if you're gonna create a course, like, yeah, and you wanna get mentorship from someone, yeah, definitely like make sure you resonate with them, with their message. I
Mhm.
mean, see how they're posting, what they're
Absolutely.
posting. I mean, that's like very smart due diligence, right? Because I mean, because again, I think all of that informs how people teach, right? And what they
Mhm.
emphasize and pacing and all of that kind of stuff, you know?
Mhm.
Um, Beth, I've got a couple more questions for you. Uh, Hi, Abelina. It's great to see you. Let me got a little got some folks. We've had a number of folks coming through. We've got 4 folks watching live right now. We've had it's gone up and down throughout. So appreciate each one of you for joining us. Take us inside the mastermind. What has been like your most favorite parts of it?
I love the teaching weeks.
Mm,
Um, I love them for the content, but I can read a book. I also love them for the kind of been there, done that.
mm,
Um, and Mel, you are so good at coming up with these really simple minded analogies. I know some of them you've gotten from other people, like your faucet analogy.
mm,
One of the things Mel teaches early on is that when you turn on the water, you let it run before you drink from it, like in
mm,
real life at home.
mm,
And so don't get discouraged when the first ideas to come out of your faucet are dreck, or junk, because that's the water that you're letting run down the drain, and it's how you get to the better ideas.
mm,
So simple, so obvious. Everybody immediately goes, "Oh, yeah, right."
mm,
But you're really good at those kind of things. And there's something about having them delivered live, as opposed to like reading it in a book or
yeah.
doing an online course about it, that I think is very helpful. Um, and I do like the mastermind
Mm,
part, the mindset, whatever you
mm,
call them, parts. Um, they're I'm not the most touchy feely kind of person.
mm,
And sometimes I'm like, oh, I just want to learn how to do this. And then I'm like, oh, this is learning how to do this,
mm,
because this is helping to free me up to allow myself
yeah.
to do it. Because, yeah, I know tons about dysgraphia,
Yeah.
but I don't know tons about making a course. And it
Mm,
does, I know some,
yeah.
and it does, it, re, it reassures me, and it helps me to work through. We talk about like external and internal barriers to change. It addresses the internal barriers to
Mm,
change, and that's real helpful to me.
yeah. Um, yeah, really well said. I think so. Beth is alluding to our teaching workshops, and our basic idea is on at every teaching workshop we focus on one thing. So for example, one of them is like designing your lessons and your modules, and so we kind of work backwards and we use this I do, we do, you do framework. And so basically we do some teaching of this is how we think about it, and then let's do an activity together to cement that, and then you go and do it and connect it to your course and do that activity, and then you get feedback. So it's basically it's not like a straight lecture. It's that you're actually doing work every week on your course. And I think part of it was also we're also busy, so we were like there is no need for us to do a straight 2-hour lecture and then leave you guys like to go figure out another 3 hours to go do your course, that kind of thing. So
This is my notebook of all the
mm,
classes we've done and all
mm,
the activities we've done, and
mm,
my notes. And
mm. That's
I,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I can look back and go, oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh,
Mm.
well, that's changed, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. 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 No, I'm so close. It's so awesome that you kept that. What was an unexpected pitfall that you had as you were going through and developing your course, as you're going through it, that the mastermind has like helped you with?
Hmm. The round table was a big one for me.
Tell
Um,
us, we touched on it, so tell
I,
us a little bit more. Like, what is that? Like that concept?
sure. Well, the round table is kind of it's like i- informally a board, like if you're a nonprofit, you have a board of advisors. And we assemble a round table of people that have expertise and experience um, with our topic in some manner.
Mm,
And maybe there's somebody, like for me it might be a parent who has a dysgraphic kid, it might be another specialist in dysgraphia,
mm,
a small group of people who have agreed as volunteers to advise you.
mm,
And I might reach out to one of them, to all of them, whatever, to say, hey, can I run this by you? I'm thinking about this, or I can't decide. I might do this, or I might do that, or what do you think about framing this in this way? And early on, you said we should put this together, and I was like, oh God, no, 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 no.
what was that
Other
about?
people were
Why?
like, oh, that sounds great.
Uh huh.
My personality, I was like, nah. And but I used the mindset coaching to push past that a little
Mm,
bit and to see what was get to understand more about what was getting stirred up for me and why this struck me as such a terrible idea emotionally, even though it's obviously such a good idea,
mm,
intellectually. And so I really did not anticipate having the kind of strong emotional reaction
mm,
to this that I
mm,
did. And I didn't feel laughed at, I felt really like my reaction was really normalized within the group, and that was lovely. And I got help with it. And, because I mean, it's obvious it's a useful idea.
mm.
It's just a useful idea I didn't like. Uh, but, that's kind of I've been around the block enough to know that useful ideas that I know to be useful and don't like are probably the most important ones,
Mm,
you know. So I think one of the things I'm just thinking out loud here, besides these specific unanticipated pitfalls,
mm,
I didn't think I didn't anticipate this isn't a pitfall, it's a benefit that this course would help me to grow personally as much as it
mm.
has.
Uh,
And
in what
it's not
ways?
therapy, spent
Yeah.
lots of years doing that.
Mm,
Um, and obviously a big fan of therapy.
mm,
Um, but again, anytime you're taking on something new and you're growing and stretching yourself, things come up. And this gives me a forum without it being therapy
mm,
to get support and reframing and normalization and all kinds of things that are useful and empowering to me.
mm. Yeah. I think that's been the most gratifying part of this for me is seeing the ways that each of you have grown as people and the ways that you've gotten more and more like courageous. And even just the conversations, I think that's just been yeah, just incredibly like awesome. Deb, it's good to see you. And Deb says good to hear more. And thank you, Beth. And the final question that I had for you is, what's something encouraging that you would share with a colleague who's watching this and thinking about launching an online course, but is kind of torn about it?
Something encouraging. Dig deeper into that feeling.
Mm,
Like, what is your hesitation about doing it? What's worrying you about doing it?
mm,
Because, in a way, it's a very no risk or low risk endeavor.
mm,
For better or worse, our time is free.
mm,
Um, you know, yeah, it takes you from doing other things, and we're all busy people, but go for it,
mm,
and if you need supports, get the supports that you
yeah,
need. I mean, for me, this mastermind has been a real important support, um, because because you're always going to worry. I'm a big believer in not torturing myself with what ifs.
mm,
Not meaning I shouldn't ask myself those questions, but meaning I want to know that I did whatever. Like, so what if I had made a course? Well, I'm gonna make a course. In fact, I've got a plan to make a bunch of courses. Um, I have my own little course. I don't know what.
yeah, your suite of courses.
Yeah, my suite of courses. That's a good word for it. I'm thinking castle, neighborhood.
Faucet, your faucet,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah. So I don't want to die
Mm,
going, oh, what if I had done that? I really
mhm,
wish I'd done that. I want to go for it.
mhm,
Not in a foolish, foolhardy way, but even if my course flops, like I said earlier, I'll tweak it, but
mhm.
at least I'll know I went for it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
so that's what I would say to somebody is go for it. Get whatever supports you needed.
Mhm,
I did a short course. It was an excellent course. It wasn't enough for me.
mm,
Um, I'm not dissing it in any way, shape, or form, but it wasn't enough. And so I tried on my own for a year or two, and nothing much was happening. And
mm,
so now much more is happening with this course because I really needed to not accept, become aware that I needed more supports than that. And once I became aware of that, I'm going for it.
yeah,
And it's good to go for things.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it reminds me of like that palliative care nurse Bronnie Ware who studied people on their deathbeds and asked them what their biggest regrets were, and a lot of those regrets centered either on like relationships or taking risks, right? Like that things that felt like so risky, but they ended up not taking those. And I think, you know, like I think you said it so well. I think there are so many of us in the field that are now thinking, especially like post pandemic, we're really thinking about legacy. We're thinking about how do we communicate this knowledge, especially because there's a mental health crisis. There aren't enough clinicians. How do
Hmm.
we uh, like share this knowledge, but at scale, right?
Hmm.
And especially us as clinicians who have the clinical training to be able to create these courses versus like somebody who's just like reads a book and then is like now creating a course. Like we have so much more depth to it, and um, yeah. So, Beth, I'm so thankful for you and thankful you're part of our mastermind. You're gonna obviously be with us. If you do join us in this upcoming cohort, you're gonna hang out with Beth as well because she's gonna be here at least 6 more months with us as she tweaks and refines and all of that with the course. And we set it up this way as well because when you come in, you always have people that you're starting with, but you also have like veterans along the way too. So you get this nice tension of, new people and people that have gone through the curriculum and been like, hey, I made this mistake too. Here's how to think about it, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, it's a
uh,
wonderful model. You
yeah,
always need people who are ahead of you to learn from.
yeah,
It's life.
yeah,
There's people ahead of you, there's people behind you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm excited for you. Where can people connect with you online? I know we're still developing some of the stuff with the course, but at minimum, where can people find you and learn more about you?
Well, my business website, which is not just for this course, but for the group practice,
Hmm.
is Treat NYC, TREAT, like treatment, NYC.com. And you're welcome to join my dysgraphia group, which is on Facebook and is called Thriving with Dysgraphia. Um, and I answer questions and interact with people. I'm a presence. And there are a lot of
Nice.
other really good, smart people in the group who some of them have been, they were some of my founding members and they know a ton.
Very cool. I'm actually just gonna pull this up if we can get the tech to cooperate here. Sounds like so the group is right here. Is that right?
Uh huh.
Yeah,
It
there it
sure.
is. Okay. And yeah, definitely check out Beth's group, Thriving with Dysgraphia, especially if you see kiddos, if you have personal connections to this. I have no
Mhm.
doubt it's a wonderful group. So, and if you would like, again, to learn more about our mastermind, we're right in the middle of our launch window. And so if you're thinking about creating an online course in 2025, late 2024 into 2025, definitely check out the mastermind. That's over at sellingthecouch.com/mastermind. I'll leave a link in the description below as well. But Beth, thank you again for joining us. If you were again able to join us live, or if you're watching this on a replay later, I appreciate you. I know how busy life is. And so thank you for taking the time and have a great rest of your day.
And thank you for offering this to me. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. And yeah, thank you, Beth. All right.